If you clicked on this, you already suspect the headlines about MAGA fracturing are a cover story. They are. Trump's smiling meeting with Mamdani and his Thanksgiving deadline for Ukraine are not signs of weakness. They're signs that he has the war finance empire cornered. First, let's look at Trump and Mamdani in the White House yesterday.
We had a meeting today that actually surprised me. He wants to see no crime. He wants to see housing being built. He wants to see rents coming down, all things that I agree with. Now, we may disagree how we get there, the rent coming down. I think one of the things I really gleaned very much today, he'd like to see him come down, ideally, by building a lot of additional housing. Yeah. That's the ultimate way. He agrees with that, and so do I. But if I read the newspapers and the stories, I don't hear that. But I heard him say it today, and I think that's a very positive step. No, I don't expect. I expect to be helping him, not hurting him. A big help, because I want New York City to be great. Look, I love New York City. It's where I come from. I spent a lot of years there. Now I'm right here. We took a big setback with the mayor that we had, Dave de Blasio. I thought it was a tremendous setback for the city. I think this mayor can do some things that are going to be really great.
Now, let's look at Trump discussing ending the Ukraine war, also in the White House yesterday.
He'll have to like it, and if he doesn't like it, then, they should just keep fighting, I guess,
The suggestion that you made, though, was that if he doesn't accept it, that the U.S. would pull back its support for Ukraine.
Well, at some point, he's going to have to accept something. He hasn't accepted. You remember right in the Oval Office not so long ago, I said, you don't have the cards. Don't forget, I inherited this war. This war never would have happened. I inherited this war. And I thought he should have made a deal a year ago, 2 years ago. The ultimate deal would have been if it never started. That would have been the good deal. That could have been done if he didn't have the right president.
Both moves showed the president at the top of his game. He even laughed and told Mamdani it was okay to call him a fascist after a reporter asked that question. Adam, can you roll that one?
Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?
I've spoken about...
That's okay. You can just say yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay? Yeah. It's easier. It's easier than explaining it. I don't mind.
But if you listen to the mainstream media, all you heard all week was how MAGA was fracturing. Trump's poll numbers are now dropping. The Epstein scandal, too much Israel, lack of faith in Marjorie Taylor Greene are all fatal, depending on who you listen to and what their jig is. They don't tell you that Donald Trump has been dissembling the Anglo-American elite's rules-based international order piece by piece in his first 10 months in office. That's what has been strangling our economy. We've had globalist controls on credit, outsourced industrial and energy supply chains, green energy mandates, and forever wars. All of them drained us. Trump has broken and is breaking all those chains. I'm Barbara Boyd, and I've written about and documented the modern British financial empire's coup against President Trump ever since it was launched back in 2015. Today, I'm going to first talk to you about the president's continuing focus on rebuilding the American economy and his attack on the cost of living, and what his meeting with Mamdani has to do with that. Then I'm going to discuss how Trump's economic transformation and ending the war in Ukraine has left Washington's uniparty and their Wall Street and London controllers desperate and, yes, dangerous. But before we dig in, if you appreciate what we're doing, please hit the like button and share this video. It increases our reach on YouTube. Zohran Mamdani, for all his divisiveness and threats, now knows he can't govern effectively for the people who elected him if he is at war with the President of the United States. They've exchanged barbs and insults for weeks, and Mamdani realizes who holds the cards and the money he needs to operate, and it ain't him. As both Trump and Mamdani said yesterday, significant numbers of New Yorkers who voted for Mamdani also voted for Trump. The reason? The horrible, rotten economy Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and their Wall Street friends created after the collapse of 2008. It's made it impossible for the working and middle classes to live, while the rich just got richer and more corrupt and more perverse. The president's hand here is simple. He loves New York. His heart is with the forgotten men and women of this country. left behind by the wretched consumer and service economy, both in New York City and nationwide. If Mamdani fails to solve the affordability problem, he won't be able to blame it now on Trump. But if Trump succeeds in rescuing New York City with Mamdani's help, the 2026 Democratic vote margins, which rely on big cities, shrink drastically and might even flip to Trump Republicans. Democrats had hoped to adopt a populist Bernie Sanders type economic policy centered on one-upping Trump on high-wage working and middle-class jobs for the midterms. Mamdani had come to symbolize that policy. Now Trump has co-opted it before it can even be born. Trump and Mamdani agreed yesterday that the answer to high rents and home prices is to build a huge amount of new homes, making the American dream accessible to young people. And Mamdani and Trump took a photo which tells you, I think, everything about the meeting. That's Mamdani and Trump standing in front of a portrait of Franklin Delano Roosevelt in the White House. Trump says he found it buried in the recesses of the building and restored it to a prominent place. Mamdani saw it and asked if they could take a picture in front of it. Roosevelt faced a similar problem. Our working classes and middle classes and farmers had been decimated by the horrible economic and warfare policies which led to the Great Depression. The World War II mobilization FDR conducted in conjunction with private companies rapidly rebuilt the most powerful economy in the world in order to win that war. That war mobilization has been deeply studied by Trump's White House. It's detailed in the book Freedom's Forge by Walter Herman. So it's not accidental that Thursday's jobs report continued to show progress. Let's listen to Trump Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett discuss it.
The September numbers were absolutely hit out of the park. You know, as you said, a double is very rare. But if you dig down into the details, there's actually proof in the pudding that President Trump's policies are really working. And here's what it is, that there was a big surge in construction workers. And we went back and traced it back to, because remember President Trump said we're going to expense new factory construction. In September, we counted 11 major companies that broke ground on new factories and hired those construction workers. And the reason why that's so positive is that those factories are going to fill up with new workers and start making stuff and so on. And so President Trump's policy of onshoring production, creating great jobs for American workers was really, really visible in this report. And of course, it shocked experts because they've been naysayers about the president's policy all along.
He might have added that all those jobs went to native-born Americans and not to foreign workers. There is much more coming, as the cabinet is focused like a laser right now on producing maximum economic progress. We'll see proposals on healthcare, groceries, and particularly housing and skilled education for our young people right after Thanksgiving, if not before. Now, the surprise 28-point Trump-Ukraine peace plan delivered to Kyiv this week shocked the crazed British and European governments who want to continue the war. Trump sent the Secretary of the Army, Dan Driscoll, and Army Chief of Staff, Randy George, and others to demand that Ukraine face military reality. This war cannot be won by them. At the same time, Zelensky's government found itself immersed in a corruption scandal. NABU, the Ukraine anti-corruption agency, is controlled by the FBI. Key members of the regime fled the country. As of Thursday, the scandal had implicated Andrei Yarmak. Often referred to as Zelensky's brain, Yarmak is the man who actually runs the country. While Europeans and the British were said to be shocked and even nauseated by the president's peace ultimatum, Viktor Orban of Hungary and other sane Europeans said that the insane insistence of London and Brussels and Paris to continue the war will only lead to a war between Europe and Russia. The U.S. has ceased to care at all about what Europe thinks. In Washington, the uniparty warmongers assembled to mourn the loudest warmonger of our time, Dick Cheney, and to ponder their own disarray. Bush Republicans and seditious Democrats, including Rachel Maddow, Anthony Fauci, and the J6 committee, all of them honored Cheney. Thursday saw another very weird event in New York. JP Morgan's Jamie Dimon draped his new building in Manhattan in the British flag and threw a weird late birthday celebration for none other than King Charles. He said he aimed to celebrate the frayed Anglo-American relationship, and his celebration included such relics as Tony Blair. Even the Wall Street Journal found this event strange and hardly in alignment with American history. Despite cheers for Trump and the king, Dimon seemed to feel an urgent need to celebrate his real allegiances and to seek protection. That's because President Trump named J.P. Morgan as a target of the Justice Department's new investigation of Jeffrey Epstein. The notorious bank has reported some $1 billion in suspicious transactions by Jeffrey Epstein, but only after Epstein's death. Epstein was a client of J.P. Morgan's Jeff Staley, who facilitated his money-moving activities from, you guessed it, London. Trump clearly has the enemy cornered. That's what led to the outburst by Senators Kelly and Slotkin and 4 Democratic representatives in their shocking video on Wednesday. Let's roll the White House version for people who didn't see it.
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
The president has never given an illegal order. These people know what they are doing.
The desperate Democrats did this because they are trying to find and cultivate new fake whistleblowers against the president, just like they did in the fake first Ukraine impeachment. But they forget that even retired commissioned officers remain subject to the Uniform Code of Military Justice. It outlaws this kind of violation of the chain of command. Now, the Secretary of War Hegseth is imploring appropriate penalties for this seditious behavior. Let me end with this. This week, the media told you a story about MAGA being in disarray. That's hardly the reality. New York's mayor-elect, who had branded Trump a fascist, walked into the White House, stood with him in front of Franklin Roosevelt's portrait, and quietly admitted that Trump voters and Mamdani voters are the same people, the people who can't afford to live in the system London and Wall Street with assistance from Barack Obama and Joe Biden built. In Ukraine, the same president laid down a peace ultimatum that says, in effect, the United States will no longer bleed itself dry for a British and Brussels war that cannot be won. Either we move to a resettlement or we, the United States, walks. And as those 2 pillars of the old order shook, what did the empire do? It buried Dick Cheney with full honors. It wrapped Jamie Dimon's skyscraper in the British flag. It began quietly testing the waters for military and intelligence defiance of the elected commander-in-chief. This is not a confident ruling class. It's a cornered one, but still a dangerous one. If you stayed with me this far, you're already ahead of 99% of the pundit class. Don't let this understanding stop with you. Share this briefing with 1 or 2 people who are confused by the noise, but know something is deeply wrong. And if you want the full documentation, the transcripts, and the history we draw on, you can subscribe to our newsletter using the link below. I'm Barbara Boyd. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again on Monday.
Thanks for watching. Please take a moment and subscribe to our free newsletter at prometheanaction.com.